Bitcoin price crashed from almost 49,000 US dollars to almost $43,000 days after the ETF approval by the SEC and the ETFs being trading on the market. Also, the US has attacked soil on Yemen. It's not just the US and other NATO countries. Another thing, inflation was back in Europe and now inflation is coming back to the US. How does it affect the market? These are the things we're going to be covering in today's video. Without any further ado, let's get straight into the video of today. And the first thing I want to show to you guys, it is here. Bitcoin price almost $43,200 days after the trade ETF became live. And it's not just Bitcoin, you can see it's all red. And you have been following the channel, you must have seen that I have been saying here a few times, be cautious. People think price is going to go up to the moon, go to 100 in a straight line. It is not so. The road is going to be very bumpy this year because we have the halving coming, but we also may be entering a recession. Now let's see the articles here. This is why Bitcoin will not crash 30% after the ETF decision. And of course, there's a lot of arguments. There's a list here. But here's what happened. These disclosures make it clear the providers are prepared and laser focused on asset acquisition. If people are buying, if there's asset acquisition, why is the price dropping? This may be another event of selling the news by the event. Bitcoin price continue to go down as I shoot this video. And we can have here also CoinDesk. BTC tumbles below 44,000. Bitcoin miners drop 10%, boosting ETF. Sell the news calls. Look at this article. Bitcoin price dropped to a near 43,000 on Friday, meaning over 60% fall in one single day of trading, while some Bitcoin mining stocks tumble over 10%, extending yesterday's decline after Thursday highly anticipated spot Bitcoin ETF. Now look at this. The Bitcoin ETF was approved on the 10th. They began to trade on the 11th, and on the 12th, the price is crashing. Bitcoin came to almost 49,000 and now it came to touch nearly 43,000. Also, according to this article, Friday's price decline was not a surprise because CryptoQuant predicted that last month Bitcoin price would fall to as low as 32,000 in the month of the ETF approval. I'm not saying that CryptoQuant is correct. I don't like to make predictions about price. I'd rather talk about what is inflationary pressure and what is deflationary pressure. Now, there is a coincidence. Almost all the time, there is this thing that when the event actually happens, the price drops. Hence the saying, sell the news, buy the event, which means when you buy at the event means the price dropped. The same thing happened when Bitcoin became legal tender in El Salvador. On the day in which it became legal tender, on the same day, the price actually dropped. Now, I'm not trying to say buy, nor I'm trying to sell here. What I'm trying to say is educate yourself, understand what you're doing before you decide to buy Bitcoin. There's a lot of things that can still happen. There's a lot of deflationary pressure. There's a lot of conflict in the world. There's a lot of things that is very unclear for 2024. The best approach, in my view, and this is not financial advice, is dollar cost averaging. And if you do not know what that is, consider joining the Academy. Link for that on the description below. We teach that and we explain that. And if you do not want to join the Academy, you can also join us on a Q&A every Wednesday. Link for that on the description below. Now, another thing that may make the price more bumpy or more volatile is the fact that in the US, inflation is picking up, and that signals a bumpy path for the Federal Reserve. A lot of people believe that the rates are going to be cut. They're counting on 6 cuts for this year. I still think we are not out of the woods yet. We may still have a recession, and of course, we still have inflation, and we can still have stagflation, which means the Federal Reserve may keep interest rates higher than anticipated. You can see here, the US inflation accelerated at the end of 2023. The consumer price index increased by 3.4% a year to December in most months according to the government figures, which means according to the own numbers of the government, inflation is back. And I have made a video before about this when I say bringing inflation from 8% to 4% is easier than to bring from 4% to 2%. And you can see here, even the Bloomberg experts are saying the surprisingly strong CPI print for December shows that the road to a durable return to 2% inflation is a bumpy one. In the last mile, it could be difficult, meaning getting the 4% or 3.5% back to 2% may be harder than getting from 8% to 4%. And if you'd like to understand why that is so, I recommend you join the Academy, because that's precisely the things that we do explain in the Academy. Now, inflation is coming back to the US for various reasons, but the main reason is the conflict in the Middle East, and that conflict is increasing the price of shipping, and the market is anticipating a higher price for petrol. We need to take into account that this conflict with Yemen and Houthis is preventing ships from getting access to the Suez Canal, adding a whole detour around Africa for all the ships that has to leave from Asia into Europe. The Suez Canal saves about 10 days of trip, not to mention the high cost of money to go all around Africa. That extra cost on shipping will eventually get to oil. Remember, petrol is the most demanded commodity on the planet, and 30% of all oil must pass to the Middle East. Iran may also start to block their own strait where 30% of all the petrol passes by, and of course the petrol that needs to pass to the Suez Canal will continue to have difficulties, especially if the US continue to attack Yemen. And it's not just the US. You can see here the US and the UK launched about 70 airstrikes on Houthi targets in Yemen as an effort to stop the shipping attacks in the Red Sea. And it's not just the UK and the US. You can see here the Netherlands, Australia, Canada, and Bahrain provided support as part of the mission, though they did not fire missiles. Tensions are gonna increase in the Middle East. There's a huge difference between you attacking or intercepting terrorist groups such as Houthis coming to the sea to attack ships. The other thing is for you to do attacks on the Yemen soil. That is an act of war. And of course, Yemen may not be able to respond to the US alone, but there is a chance that other countries such as Iran and other axes of resistance, other countries may come together and attack US. Now, another thing that Iran can do is maybe not even attack, but block the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the Strait of Hormuz, which is controlled by Iran, there's a place where over 30% of all petrol consumed on Earth passes through that strait. And if 30% of the supply of the petrol becomes disrupted, we're going to have more inflation this year. And of course, more inflation would mean higher rates for much longer and the possibility of the recession hitting us. And of course, if there's a recession, we would not know what would happen to Bitcoin and any other asset, because Bitcoin has not yet survived a recession. We do not know how this asset and all the other crypto assets will behave on a recession. My guess is the following. Last century, between 1920 and 1930, we had over 3,000 automobile manufacturers in the US. And then you had the Great Depression. Now, out of those over 3,000 automobile manufacturers, only 3 survived. And they were called then what they are called still today the Big 3. So I believe whenever we have a massive recession of the 20,000 some cryptocurrencies, we're going to have a handful of survivors. And my bet is Bitcoin will be one of those survivors. At least those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Let me know that on the comments below. And with this, I wrap up this video. My question to you is, which other cryptocurrency you believe can survive a recession? Please let me know that on the comments below. This is it for now. See you in the next video. Kaboom. Goodbye.